Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, once again, we do hope you've enjoyed your very short break. Our next plenary session, Technology and Innovation, also features a stellar cast of speakers that we actually have on stage. We'd like to take the opportunity to introduce each of our speakers and our moderator. Firstly, Mrs. Ayesha Khanna, Director for Hybrid Realty Institute, New York, United States of America. Can we give her a big warm welcome, please? Good morning, ma'am. Dr. Xia Mingde, Senior Director, Corporate and Office of Science and Technology, Johnson & Johnson, United States of America and China. Good morning, Doctor. Mr. Siddharth Jain, Chief Creative Director, Playware Studios Asia, Singapore. Good morning, sir. Moderating the session is Professor Robin Jeffrey, Visiting Research Professor, Institute of South Asian Studies, Singapore. It gives me great pleasure now to turn the floor to Professor Jeffrey, our moderator, please.
Thank you. And it's particularly a privilege for me to be here. I think I'm perhaps the only non-South Asianist, non-Singaporean, and I've profited immensely from being allowed to be a participant in these deliberations of the last couple of days. It's been particularly interesting, I think, in that we're ending with a strong emphasis on future and future matters. I think that's very appropriate because this, I hope, will be the first of regular diaspora conventions of this kind. The first one, in many ways, was the most difficult. Our chairman, Mr. Gopinath Pillai, took a gamble in pursuing the idea and bringing it off so well. The speakers we've heard up till now, I think, have been extraordinary in the quality, the entertainment, and the knowledge that they've brought to these deliberations. And I think you'll find with the current panel that this part of the convention is going to end with a bang. These three speakers that we have now are particularly interesting. They're particularly well chosen for where we want to go next, which is to look at what happens next, what happens to the region, what happens to the diaspora. And the appropriateness of the speakers, I think you'll see as they begin to speak. I'll introduce them with a few words as each one comes on, but let me say that the emphasis is first on the future, both the future of the region and the future of this convention, I think. And it's very appropriate that Ayesha Khanna begins because future work is very much part of her daily routine. Our other two speakers focus on health and on education and current research, development, and innovation in those two areas, both of which, of course, have come up in the course of the last couple of days as matters of great moment for the countries of South Asia and for the contributions that Singapore may be able to make. So Ayesha will begin, and her brief, if I may give it to you, is the topic is the hybrid age, mankind's fifth technological revolution. Her background is very appropriate, an Indian background, and of course New York City experience. She couldn't be more appropriate to address this kind of meeting. So Ayesha, please.
Thank you so much. Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank the Institute for having me here today. The last 2 days have been extremely interesting, and I hope I can contribute a little bit, as Robin said, to thinking about the future, and in particular, the future in terms of technology. So what I'm going to be speaking about today is the hybrid age and the opportunity for the South Asian diaspora to really leverage some of the technology trends and urbanization trends in the world and to manifest those and transform those into economic growth. So it's very difficult to really think about the future, particularly the role that technology plays in the future, without stepping back and looking at patterns of human-technology interaction. So let's take a big step back. Let's go back 250,000 years, when Homo sapiens roamed the earth and used stone tools to dominate other species. That was the Stone Age. Then in the Agrarian Age, we used crop cultivation, animal husbandry, and we settled down. We became sedentary, and we formed towns. 5,000 years ago, we began to form cities. Then 250 years ago, the scientific breakthroughs that happened in the Renaissance really came to market, and technologies like the steam engine led to mass production, mass consumption, and also a greater rate of globalization. And then what we're familiar with, which is the information age, which really started in the late 1970s with the birth of the personal computer, and then in 1989 with the birth of the web. And what happened after that was, again, life was drastically transformed, and especially in the developed world, or the elite of the developing world, we saw this move towards the knowledge economy. And so every time we had this change in the type of technology that mankind encountered, we saw a drastic change in the way we lived our life and great economic opportunities, and there were a lot of winners and losers every time. So many of us think we're still in this information age. And really what I'd like to talk about today is that we've already begun the transition to the hybrid age. And I'm going to talk about what this is, and this is humanity's fifth technological revolution. So what is the first trend that I want to talk about today is that the very nature of technology is changing. It is becoming ubiquitous, which means now we'll begin to see technology just not in our laptops and our phones and our microwaves, but in all shapes and sizes, and it will be surrounding us constantly. It is becoming intelligent, which means that it is no longer that these technologies are dumb repositories of information, but that they can respond to us intelligently. And finally, it's becoming social. And this means that when we have natural human-computer interactions based on gestures and voice activation, we will actually begin to trust technology a lot more. So really, we live in this hybrid reality now, which is a reality in which every aspect of our lives is mediated by technology. And if there's any doubt, I always give this picture. And about February 2011, there's a show called Jeopardy in the US. It's very popular. And there was a new contestant. And as you can see, he's standing in the middle of Ken and Brad, two human contestants. His name is Watson, and he's actually a machine that was created by IBM. And there were two significant things about Watson. First of all, he was able to answer questions much faster and much better than his contestants. But the reason that it's remarkable is because understanding Jeopardy questions requires intelligence. They are subtle, they're contextual, they're language-based. And remember, linguistics is a sign of human intelligence. And the other thing that was interesting about Watson was that all of America sat down and saw it. They sat on their couches, they ate their potato chips, they cheered when Watson did well, they booed when he didn't do well, and then they went on with their lives. But really, do you see what happened? There's a machine with two people standing on both ends, and this is almost completely normal. So this is, I think, the coming out party of the hybrid age. So not only have we entered what I'm calling this hybrid age, but I would say that we are accelerating into a deeper form of hybrid reality. And I call these, there are three drivers, and I call them disruption multipliers. The first is cost. So the cost of computers, and especially computing, is going down. It's by Moore's law. There are more silicons in every, there are more chips on every silicon chip, and so the cost has been precipitously going down. This means that a computer that used to take up the size of a room now takes up something literally in power as small as your mobile phone. Secondly, collaboration between the sciences is increasing. So if you look at a field called biomechatronics, it was started by Hugh Hare at MIT. And it's a combination of biology, mechanical engineering, and electronics. And together, using these three disciplines, he's been able to create the most sophisticated prosthetics on Earth. And we'll see a lot more of this, new technologies leading to accelerated innovation. And finally, reach is also a multiplier, because now the poor, through mobile phones, can actually have a lot of technologies accessible to them. And Chris Anderson calls this crowd-accelerated innovation, because frankly, we don't even know the kind of interesting things that will come out from the developing world. We saw mobile banking in Kenya that is now spread in Africa and actually did reach that continent far before it reached the rest of the world. One of the things where we'll see this a lot is the Internet of Things. So in 1989, Tim Berners-Lee connected people. So now we have Facebook, we have many ways of email, messenger. We've been connected to each other using the web. Now the second iteration of the web is the Internet of Things. This means everything from the bottles in front of you to the spectacles that you're wearing, to the car that you drove here. Everything is connected and sharing information. And huge amounts of big data are created as a result. In fact, 20 typical households in a couple of years will be creating as much data, pure data, as the entire internet right now. So the opportunity, as you can imagine, for using this data to create new businesses and to improve the lives of people in cities in particular, and businesses and governments is immense.